Hello, welcome to the video. I'm going to be testing Skull and Bones Open Beta out on my 4090. I'm going to be doing it at 4K at first, so we've got that set here. Graphics wise, we've got everything set to the max it can be, so some of those settings go to very high, ultra high, some go to high, and then we've got ray tracing on at the bottom here, so let's have a look at that. Right, so we're looking at about 70 FPS at the moment, average 70 FPS. Probably, at least at C, from what I've seen, mostly between kind of 60 and 80 FPS. You're seeing it dip down slightly there. It's the main issue on this game, seems like when you get on land in some areas, especially the port areas, which I will show. That's where the issues seem to start for most of it. Even though we're out on the water here, I noticed my GPU usage doesn't really go above about 95%. So you can see that here, 94%. I think maybe max 96% you see, but it doesn't really go over that. And then I'll show on land in a little bit, but we have massive drops in that when we go to the port area. On the rest of my hardware at least, the game isn't particularly demanding. GPU power is about 250, so that's quite significantly lower than most other games when I'm playing at 4K. Normally it's about 100 watts more than that. And even VRAM's under 10 gig here, so obviously not an issue on my 4090 at least. I would be expecting slightly higher frames, maybe closer to 100 FPS, but because this GPU usage doesn't seem to ever max out, I think you're missing out on some performance there. See what the frame rate's like in the combat. Seems to hold up fairly well. It doesn't drop too badly. I don't know what's shooting at me from behind. Gonna finish this guy off. So it doesn't drop too badly. I've just realized my ship's health. That's not good. And this is the port area, so you can go on land in a fair few places, but this is where the issues seem to start for me. So you're already noticing GPU usage is down to below 80% or hovering around 80%, and then the more I walk around here, it can get really bad, down to about 60%, I think. Drops to like 40 FPS I've seen before, so you're seeing it drop down a bit more here. And then this here is the worst area. So look, you're seeing here 43 FPS, and it's dropping down to about 70% GPU usage. And you see my frame time there is all over the place. There you go, down to even 54% GPU usage. So that's not particularly performing that great. This seems like the worst area I've seen so far. Obviously, I'm only at the start of the game, so it's likely if this port is like this, the other ports are probably going to be the same. There are some other areas I've landed on, small islands that don't seem as bad. They stay above 90%, so this definitely seems like the worst area I've seen so far. I'm at 4K native still, but I'm going to be taking a look with ray tracing off, so I've still got the graphics settings maxed out, but I've got ray tracing switched off here. Now, it's probably not going to be a huge difference with ray tracing off, just because it's only ray tracing global illumination, so I wouldn't have thought it has a massive effect on FPS. By the looks of it straight away, we may be looking at a couple of FPS at most, really, with it off. We might maybe notice more on the port, maybe. Can't say I really notice any difference graphically. I'm now going to take a look with DLSS on. So we've got DLSS quality set here. I'm still at 4K with all of the settings maxed out. So you can see we've got quite a fair big increase in FPS. You're looking at probably 20 to 30 FPS more. We had about an average of 75 before we switched it on. So that's about, yeah, 20, maybe 25 to 30. increase, hovering around 100, but still getting some dips down. You are likely going to see some, still see dips down. But for the most part, hovers around 96 FPS. We've got an average of that. Frame time's looking a little bit up and down. I'm noticing, obviously, my GPU usage here is lower than what we had at native. So we had about 94, 95% for the most part, but we're getting dips down here to about 88%, so it's made that a little worse. But it has actually brought my power down by almost 50 watts there as well. It's quite a big difference. I'm still at 4K, but I'm going to take a look with DLSS Ultra Performance, so we've still got all the graphics settings maxed out as well. Now, I think with DLSS quality, we had about an average of 105-ish, somewhere around there. So we're seeing about almost 120 here, so it's definitely not a normal kind of increase of FPS that you would see in other games with Ultra Performance. Because that GPU usage is dropping down, the more CPU bound you go, it doesn't really give you the same kind of FPS that Ultra Performance normally would. I'd probably be expecting closer to 150 FPS here with this. I'm going to take a look at 1440p, so we've got that set here. I've still got all the graphics settings maxed out, so that's either ultra high, very high. We've got ray tracing on still as well. So I was mostly curious to see what our GPU usage will look like at 1440p compared to 4K. It looks, at the moment, it looks pretty much the same, doesn't it? Maybe slightly lower, because we were averaging more 95% at 4K, and it looks like we're getting 92% more. You would obviously expect it to be a little lower if it's going... If we're dropping the resolution, we're going even more CPU bound, so you would expect to see in that scenario the usage to come down more, which we are, I think, seeing here. Overall average, I think it's slightly less than even 4K, so if we went on the port again, it would probably be even worse this time. But we are getting over 100 FPS here, which is good. I actually managed to hit it. Usage-wise, what was the lowest we saw at 4K? I think it was about 60%. We saw it dip down to in some bits. So we're seeing just under 80% here, but the worst bit is over this side. When we run through here, there you go, 50%. 54%, so it's definitely going to dip down worse. 55%. I'm still at 1440p, but I'm going to have a look with DLSS quality, so we've got that set here. Maybe seeing, at the moment, like a 10 to 15 FPS increase. Whereas, obviously, normally with DLSS, you'd expect maybe a 20 to 30 FPS increase, so it's not quite as much as you'd normally get by switching that on. And then I imagine the lower you go the DLSS presets, the kind of less and less you'll see FPS improvement-wise, and you'll just be degrading the image quality, obviously, quite significantly compared to other games. I've got it set to 1080p now, so I'm going to take a look at that. We've got it set here. Graphics-wise, we've still got everything maxed out, so that's either very high, ultra high, or high. And then ray tracing we've got on here as well. Looks like we're seeing about 120 FPS here. Shame we're not even really hitting 144 Hz at least. GPU usage, though, that's still down, so it's still hovering around the kind of 90% area. 4K was more 95%. Looks fairly similar to what we had at 1440p, though, for that as well. We had around about 90% GPU usage for that as well. VRAM looks fairly similar, maybe slightly lower than what we had at 1440p, but not massive. That's going to be it for this video. Thanks a lot for watching. Make sure to drop a like on the video. Let me know what you think of the game so far, and I'll catch you next time.